Okay, Rabbi Isai, good morning. So, picking up from where we left off, we want to move on really to... We've seen quite a lot of the Lomdus, right? And we know that there is no question that Hapolas Ubrim, to give it its technical term, is definitely Osur. We haven't even seen, the truth is, I just need to mention, because this is such a big sugya, you know, we can go on for pretty much forever. We haven't seen the Meshech Chochma, there's Meach, and lots of other Achronim, because the debate rages on about whether it is an Issa min HaTorah or an Issa midrabanan. There are a lot of opinions on either side. What we want to try and do now is look perhaps at some of the more common scenarios that perhaps as Rabbanim one day you will be faced with. Now, therefore I'm actually going to do something, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're not going to look at situations of sakona, because there you will not take the decisions on your own, for sure. You will refer higher up the food chain. Yeah. You'll realize, you'll have the anova to realize it's above your pay grade, and you will refer to senior poskim. But what may come up, and it's important for us to know, I don't want this to go on for many more sessions, because we're going to move on to other sugyas as well. And we're going to wrap it up by looking at, next week we will look at the reaction by the different, both religious and non-religious Jewish organizations to the Dobbs decision, the so-called the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and we're going to examine them, and it'll help us a lot in understanding whether it's ranging from the Agudas Yisrael to the RCA, and then even the non-orthodox organizations, CCAR, etc. And that'll be interesting for us as an analysis. But what we're going to look at today, I thought we'll take something really lemaisa, very much very practical lemaisa. So, Rav Zilberstein, soll er sein gesund, is probably one of the biggest halachic authorities and experts in medical halacha, right? And he gives a shiur, I think it's on a Thursday night, a very famous shiur, which is only open to medical practitioners. Wow. And they've published it, I've actually got it at home, I can't remember whether it's 3 or 4 volumes, Refuah B'Halacha, Shiurei Torah L'Roifim. So I've taken out one shiur. I'm going to look at an approach that he has. We're then also going to look at 2 tshuvas from Rav Moshe Sternbuch, and that will probably wrap it up with that, because like I say, this can go on for a long time. So, Shiurei Torah L'Roifim, let's go through this simon. We're going to go through it carefully, properly together. It gives us a lot of fantastic insight. And note the date, okay, it's Elul, Tovshin Samach Gimel. So, here's the shaila from a Dr. Levi. L'chveido Rav Shlita. Nochriya Ma'uberes. Ba'al Hibodek Etzli. And this, I suppose, is going to be one of the more common shailas. A medical practitioner, a doctor or a nurse, is working in a hospital, in a clinic, which is not run al pi halacha, right? In England, in Germany, in America, wherever. And they are called upon to perform a procedure which, al pi halacha, is forbidden. It's forbidden. So if it's a Gentile, so it's an Issa, it's absolutely Ossa for a Gentile under the rubric of Ritzicha to be a Mapilan Uba. And again, talking about a scenario where it's elective, there's no sakona, right? That's what they want to do, and they're allowed to do that. Again, it might make a difference before or after 40 days, possibly, we'll see. But so here's the question: are you allowed to do it? You, as a Jewish medical practitioner, are you allowed to do it? Do you have to stand your ground? Do you have to lose your job? How does it go? So, this is obviously a Jewish doctor, so presumably this is in Israel. Says this doctor, a pregnant Gentile woman came for a checkup. Giliti be'uber mum shel hydrocephalus. Kamus oidefas shel noizlim bechadrei hamoyach. Shegoyrem lagdolas nefach hachadar lelachetz al rikmas hamoyach shesov leisalez lo isay ezor. Lachatz mamushach mizgab rikmas hamoyach alo ligrem nezach moichi kabua. basically hydroencephalitis, I think in English it's called. But pressure, water on the brain, which, if left, can develop potentially into permanent brain damage. So when, says the doctor, I told this woman this, so she said, okay, if that's the case, then I want an abortion. I don't want to have a child that is going to be brain damaged. Or potentially. Nistapakti imutala li lazerla. My shaila is, says this doctor, am I allowed to support her in this decision? Maybe my here is, and the reason I chose this shaila is because there's an additional twist here. There's a fascinating angle. Perhaps it is not only, as he suggests, is it also for me to to help her, actively help her in her quest for an abortion. Maybe do I have an obligation to actually dissuade her? Do I have a chiyuv? How far does my chiyuv go?
Right.
So it's a fascinating insight in the shaila itself. Yeah. And Rav Zilberstein is going to address all of these. Let's go through this. We're going to go quite quickly because we've covered a lot of the ground already. Ne'emar batoira, tshuva. Ne'emar batoira shefich dam ba'odam dama yishofich. Upirshu chazal shakavana lahiraguba b'mei imoy shechayev misa. Vadvarim amurim al b'nei noyach. Vein hevdel ben hiraguba bari yochayla. In the bottom line is that, as we know, as we've discussed at length, for a Gentile to be mapil and uba, whether healthy or otherwise, is absolutely awesome in our Torah. V'kachos v'rambam ben noyach shaharag nefer afilu nerag olav v'cheinem harag atreifa. It is a capital offense for a ben noyach. V'afal pi she'yisrael uba, even though it is true that for a Jew who kills an uba or a treifa is potter b'dinei odom, it isn't a capital offense. In this instance, it is stricter with Gentiles. And here he adds something. That it is, the reason it is stricter is, he brings a Shailu Meshiv, right, Rabbi Yosef Shol Natanson, that the reason is that the Torah saw more need to stress the infinite value of life. Fascinating insight, social insight, and how true this is today. Therefore, it's stricter for a Gentile. That's why the Torah did it that way, because I suppose to some extent the Rabbeinu Shalom understood that we have this value of life so strongly in halacha and in hashkafa that we don't need this reinforcing. Fascinating to give almost a tam. This is what the Sholem Eshiv says. Because of our Sameach, sheyesh lilmud kain mi David HaMelech. The Sameach writes that we would learn this from David HaMelech. Shaharag es ger ha'amaleki, shaharag es Shaul. He killed the ger ha'amaleki who killed Shaul. Afal pishav isa Shaul kvar nofal Shaul ala chanus. Even though Shaul was already in the process, in the throes of dying. Which for us, we wouldn't, it's not a capital offense for us. It's osur, it's forbidden, but it's not a capital offense if you kill a goyseis, somebody who's actively dying. But the ger ha'amaleki, harei shehechmira b'toira b'nochrim b'shvichos damim yosim b'Yisrael. K'moi kein chamor dinoi shal nochri she'im kaf se'adam nerag lifnei aviyah shenichi b'rav ad shemei soil v'hemis b'chol mokim nerag. That when it comes to the concept of groma, causation, even though it's slightly more indirect, it is stricter, says the Paskins the Rambam, for a Gentile than it is for a Jew. Lefi ha'amr, therefore, next paragraph. Lefi ha'amr yotzeh shenochri aminatik choyle goyses mimechunas hachaya. Therefore, if a Gentile were to detach somebody from a life support machine, dina chamor mi Yisroise mi Yisrael ha'isazos. It is stricter from our perspective in halacha. It is worse for a Gentile doctor to detach somebody from a life support machine than for a Jew to do it. Ki Yisrael hamenatek ulai hu nachshav ligroma. It could be that if a Jew does it, it is considered causation. It's groma. V'oid she Yisrael ha'iragu b'chayiv b'dinei shamayim v'lo b'dei adam. Whereas if a Jew kills somebody who is already in the process of dying, it is true that you're not allowed to do it, and he is chayev b'dinei shamayim, but it's not a capital offense in dinei oda. Whereas for nochri, he's chayev misa in beis din, bein begroma, bein begoises. V'gam kasher Chabura shneim yachdav kleim harag begroma goises. Kamoken Yehuda. For the same reason, a Jew who does who carries out an abortion is chayev misa b'dei shamayim, whereas the Gentile does the same thing. It's a capital offense, and if we were to have the authority, etc., it would be a capital offense in beis din. L'oyer zois, for this reason, gam l'roifa Yehudi osur levatzeh hapala b'nochriya. It is therefore absolutely forbidden for a Jewish medical practitioner to carry out an abortion on a non-Jew. You are being machshel, you're causing her to stumble, literally. You wouldn't even be allowed to refer her to a Gentile practitioner, medical practitioner, who would do it. Because then you are causing the Gentile practitioner to do it, which is also asa. Now here we come, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this, Tshuva. Please be aware that what we're about to learn has ramifications way beyond this case. This is a concept. In fact, I'm still toying with the idea of doing it as a separate topic. And that is Lifnei Iver Lo Sitein Mechshel, which you're familiar with, right? In front of the blind, literally the blind, may not place a stolpersteiner, right? Literally, a mechshel, a stumbling block. Now, this comes in various flavors, min haTorah, min Rabbanon, and there is one main rule that applies to this. The classic case, the Gemara discusses, there are many, but one of the classic cases is, it is forbidden, l'hoishit kos yayin l'nozir, right? I know you're a Nazir, right? And you say, could you please pass me the wine? So I am facilitating you to do an Issa. The Gemara says that it is Osur min haTorah when it is Trei Avra Denahara. You should know this, put this phrase, underline it, highlight it. It's in the third, or the second paragraph, towards the end of the second paragraph here on this page. If I were able to highlight it, make sure you know this. This is a very important halachic phrase you need to have in your back pocket, in your lexicon, yes? In your vocabulary. Trei Avri Denahara. Any guesses as to what it means? Two something. Sides. Denahara, Nahar. A river. So the Gemara says, if you were on one side of the river without access to wine, can you imagine? Without access to alcohol. Who was it? A comic once said, reality is an illusion caused by a lack of alcohol. Sorry, to lower the tone somewhat.
That's so good.
Yeah, it is a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Ought to behave. I'm overtired. Where were we? Yes. So the Issa min haTorah of Lifnei Iver Lo Sitein Mechshel operates primarily when it's Trei Avri Denahara, i.e., you on your own could not get the wine. I'm on the other side of the river with the wine. and I pass it over the river to you. In other words, it's not a metaphor. It's a way of explaining that this applies in a situation where you could not go and do it on your own volition. You need me. There's a barrier, and I provide you with it, and otherwise you wouldn't be able to have this. Got it? That's the situation. Now, therefore, here. So now Rav Zilberstein is raising the following problem, and that is, if I am not the only doctor in the world, and if I don't tell her to do it, she'll go and get it done with somebody else. So she could just as easily go do it without me. Now, this is a general rule in Lifnei Iver. The technical, the severity, the full extent of the Isur min haTorah only applies in a situation where the person needs you to get the Aveira done. Without you, it couldn't be done. And therefore, very often we will find ourselves in scenarios where the person, if it wasn't for you, would be able to go and get it done anyway. How to what extent does it mitigate it? Does it then become something else called Messiah Lidei Ovrei Aveira? Possibly. Is there a difference to Eraisa, the Rabbonon, Gentile, Jew? So we're opening up it's a sidebar, but it's a really important sidebar, and you will find many. I'll give you just a case that, not here, but when I was in London, I had a member of my kehillah that were essentially, they were carers for their old parents. Their parents were still at home, but they were frail. They weren't, and they were not religious. The kehillah was a Baal Tshuva kehillah, and the mother would say to the daughter. The daughter was in her 50s. Would say, please go to Sainsbury's and buy me some chicken. So you can't, Kibbud Av V'Em does not overrule Isurim. So there's a halachic shaila. There's also a question of sensitivity and how to handle it, and every case is different to some extent in terms of the understanding the personalities and the context and how far you can push and where it's really coming from. But there's a halachic shaila. I had another shaila. Just throw out to you because I want you to be aware of this. It will come your way. It absolutely will come your way. I had a guy who was working in a brokerage firm in the city, and his boss, who was Jewish, would say to him, he would go around the corner to Deutsche Bank for mincha, and his boss would say, on the way back, do you mind picking up for me from the barrow downstairs a BLT? You know what BLT is?
Something cheese.
No, close. In England, it's a classic sandwich. Bacon, lettuce, tomato. BLT. Also hestas. It's probably the equivalent of the currywurst over here, or the doner kebab or something.
I was thinking of cheesesteak.
Yeah, not Shavuos. So, but anyway, so his Jewish boss would say to him, "You're going down." Here's the irony. He was quite happy in his lunch hour. This guy would go to mincha around the corner, but on your way back, could you please bring me back, my bacon sandwich? Does he have to lose his job for it? Does he? And if he doesn't say it, so it's obviously the guy will get it anyway, etc. And then another shaila, just leave you with the third one, also actually had to do with sandwiches, funnily enough, was a guy who we came across I was more involved in sort of frontline kiruv. A guy was becoming from, and his business was selling sandwiches in the city of London on a little mobile cart of some sort, and he was selling. And obviously, there's a lot of Jews working there as well. And again, each case is different, and we're not even going to go into the detail. But you need to have a very strong awareness of this concept and its parameters. So let's go back here. So therefore, says Rav Zilberstein, he says in this third paragraph, if he's not going to support her in her wish to get an abortion, somebody else will do it. So then maybe Einze b'bchinas trei avra denara umuta. Ach nira. This is interesting. Ach nira. Shelashitas ha-Mishnah lemelech. According to the opinion of the Mishnah lemelech, we'll discover in a minute, Osur l'roifei ha-Yehudi la'azor lo lahapil. It would be forbidden for this Jewish doctor to actively support her in this decision to get an abortion. Why? It is forbidden for a Jew to borrow from another Jew with ribis. Because you are entrapping and snaring the fellow who's lending you money to lend baribis, right? Right? There's a guy who lends out money. He's either secular or whatever, or he doesn't care about the halacha, or ignorant, whatever the point is. And I need a loan. The only way I feel like I'm going to be able to get the loan is by going to this guy, I'm Jewish, he's Jewish, and saying to him, please lend me whatever it is, and I'll pay the ribis. And I think to myself, because I know this guy's going to, if that £5,000, he's got a limited pool of money, I imagine, to lend, and if I don't do it, he'll lend it to another Jew. So it's going to happen anyway. That's the scenario. Says the Mishnah Lamelech, Ein b'zeh ki gam ha'Yehudim acherim machshi lemoisai, v'hem yavru lifnei iver. The other Jews are also ensnaring and trapping him, encouraging him by their request to borrow money. at ribis, and they're over on lifnei iver. Nimtza she'ein lemalva derech shel heta. There is no scenario in which it is okay for this guy to lend to another Jew with ribis. Ki lechol mi sheyilva yaver al alav lifnei iver, yaver haloiva lifnei iver. Whoever he's going to lend to, the borrower is going to transgress the lifnei iver. V'chivin she'amal ve'eni yochel aver al isar ribis leloi loiva sheyilva mimenu. Given that, in English there's a saying, it takes two to tango, right? In order for there to be for a loan to take place, there needs to be a malveh and a loiva, a lender and a borrower, right? And since the malveh, the lender, cannot transgress the issur of ribis without the loiva transgressing lifnei iver. Therefore, the borrower is absolutely guilty here. He is the one that is providing the stumbling block. There is no way of justifying this. To say, he could lend to somebody else. That's the Mishnah Lamelech's opinion. That says Rav Zilberstein, let's compare it to our scenario. Any doctor, Jew or Gentile, that performs the abortion on this Gentile woman is being over the issa of Ritzicha, of murder, from our perspective, right?
Either both or one.
No. It's for a Gentile woman. The woman is Gentile, so whatever the religion of the doctor is irrelevant.
It depends on the.
It's irrelevant. It is absolutely also for this woman to get an abortion. It's an issa min haTorah for her to get an abortion. Therefore, it is lifnei iver for the doctor, Jew or Gentile, to perform it. And there's no scenario in which an abortion happens and lifnei iver doesn't. There is it. So therefore you can't say, it's the other side. It's one side of the river because she can go and get an abortion whenever she wants from somebody else. True, she can and she will. But getting an abortion de facto is always connected with an issur of lifnei iver, and therefore there is no scenario in which it's okay. To make this a bit clearer, just because I can see you maybe haven't made it totally clear. Let's go back to the case of the wine, which is really easy. Okay? See, in the case of the wine, let's say the wine is on the same side of the river, Chad Avra Danahara, in which case there is no lifnei iver, because let's say this is the bottle of wine. Okay? You could very easily get up. If I wasn't here, what would you do? You'd get up and you'd take, if you want to be over, you would get up but you happen to be say, Rabbi, please pass me the wine.
Right.
So if I don't pass you the wine, then you will transgress the issur of Nazir, but there'll be no lifnei iver.
Right.
So there is a scenario in which there is no lifnei iver, because you're going to go and just do it yourself. All there will be is the issur of Nazir. So in that situation, technically min haTorah, it would be okay for me to do it, because it's possible to transgress the issur that we are discussing without connecting it to any potential lifnei iver. Whereas in the case of the loan with the ribis or the abortion, there is no scenario in the world that involves a woman doing an abortion because she can't do it herself.
It needs to be.
Because let's assume she can't do it herself. She has to get hold of the medication. I mean, we're not going to go down the whole what do we say? The way of doing it, butchering herself at home. I suppose that's not going to happen. She's not going to, what they did in the olden days, the coat hanger kind of thing. Sorry for mentioning it. But the butchery she's not going to do that. What is she going to do? She is going to go to a medical practitioner. That is what people do. Therefore, any medical practitioner that does it, there's a lifnei iver. So there's no scenario in the world where the issur of ritzicha, of aborting a fetus, takes place without the concomitant, without the attending other issur. They go together, and therefore there is always going to be lifnei iver. Therefore, you can't get out of it by saying, I'll send it to somebody else. That is the opinion of the Mishnah Lamelech. There's a note here, but I don't want to overcomplicate it. Maybe in your own time you can go through the note here. I'll just draw your attention to the note down here. Number one. Yeah. You can do it in your own time. Let me know what you think of it, and we can discuss it later. Let's go on, because I really want to move on here. Ulam hapnei Moshe The Pnei Moshe, in this case, the Pnei Moshe, one of the main commentators on the Gemara Yerushalmi, Matir Lilves mi Yisrael, Sheben Kach Yalva Isam Mosim Yehudi Acha Beribis, Ukudvar Pasuk HaChasam Sofer. The Pnei Moshe and the Chasam Sofer argue with this Mishnah Melech. Now, this is really, again, a very important machlokas, again, to have in your back pocket. Let's go back to the scenario of the Ribbis. The Mishnah Melech paskins, because lending with Ribbis will always involve also a Lifnei Iver, because you need a Malva and a Loiva, therefore it's always going to be Osa. However, the Pnei Moshe and the Chasam Sofer allows it. They argue. They say Mater Lilvos mi Yisrael Sheben Kach Yilva Oisam Lemois Yehudi Acha Beribis. If the lender, let's say there's only Jews here, we have to somehow write Gentiles out of the equation for this, technically for this case of Ribis. Let's say either this 5,000, whatever it is, I will borrow it from him Beribis, or another Jew will do Beribis. In that scenario, says the Chasam Sofer, not like the Mishnah Melech, there's no Lifnei Iver. It's like one side of the river. Not like the Mishnah Melech. Now, on that basis, maybe we could say that therefore this Jewish doctor could refer her to another doctor to do it, because there's no Lifnei Iver. Somebody else will do it anyway. Ulishitosom ein isra l'roifa hayehudi la'azor lo lahapil.
Well,
possibly. And then it gets a bit more complicated. There's something else called Lifnei de Lifnei. And that is if you remove it by one stage. Not that I actually give you the Isur, but I facilitate. It's not a proximate cause. It's one stage removed. It's Lifnei de Lifnei. And that's a whole separate subtopic, which it's here in the brackets. We're not going to go into it. Okay. So that is as far as that is concerned. What about therefore? So he's actually said that it could be on this basis, according to the Chasam Sofer, it would be okay for him to actually do the abortion. That's what it sounds like. La'azor lo lahapil. I don't know whether it means to actually do it or not. Maybe it just means the Lifnei Iver. Well, rega. I want to make sure I'm not making a mistake here. I'm not sure what he actually. Let's reserve judgment on what he means in this, because in this paragraph he says twice. He uses the language la'azor lo lahapil, to help her be mapil, do the abortion. If you look in the previous paragraph, it looks as if it would be the same. It would make no difference about whether he's actually doing it or sending it to somebody else. It could be, according to the Chasam Sofer, it would be okay for him to do it. Min HaTorah, at least, potentially. Let's go on. Let's see whether it becomes clear. Okay, what about just referring her to another doctor? What would be if he doesn't give her this contact details of an abortion clinic or whatever? She will get, if she will get the exact same. In other words, if this information is available and she could access this information from somebody else, another doctor, Gentile, then it could be that even, now here he says along this, follow with. What would be if you're not, and by the way, this proves that I was right, that until now he was actually talking about doing it himself. And he's saying that potentially, according to the Chasam Sofer, it would actually be okay, Min HaTorah at least, for the doctor to do it, because otherwise somebody else would do it, and therefore there's no Lifnei Iver. Okay? Now he takes it one stage removed. What would be, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to give her advice. I'm going to give her the contact details and say, I know there's an abortion clinic, there's a guy that will do it for you. Right? He's now going to say a chiddush. He's going to say, given that, if she were able to access this information from another Gentile, she could go to another doctor who's not Jewish, right? And she could say to a Gentile doctor, could you please give me the contact details for an abortion clinic? What is the issa for him to give her those details? Again, what is the issa for the Gentile to give her the details of another one?
Higher.
Is there an issa even? He said it could be that even according to the Mishnah Melech, it could be that a Gentile is not allowed to do the actual abortion, but it's not at all clear whether a Gentile is forbidden to refer her. Not at all clear. And therefore it could be even the Mishnah Melech who would say that, generally speaking, we say it is considered still lifnei iver, but not if the giving of the eitzah itself is not asur.
Isn't it even better for the Goyish doctor to refer her? Because he's, so to speak, then less in the danger of doing it himself.
That's a question.
Well, the question is this is exactly what he's saying. It could well be. He said he reserves judgment. He says, and he refers to another tshuva which I haven't seen. He says over here, yitochen. It could well be. In other words, there are certainly some opinions that the issur for the guy is only to do the abortion, but not to refer. Therefore, I can refer her to an abortion clinic because she could go to a Gentile who would refer her without doing any issa.
Yeah. Okay.
And therefore, possibly, even according to the Mishnah Melech, it would be okay. Ulam. However, that's all if we're talking about it's going to go ahead and she's going to do it anyway. Ulam. Imbeli eitzah shaloi. What would be if without his eitzah, yitochen sha'isha lo tapel klal? It would be that she won't go ahead with the abortion. Then it could be that even according to the Pnei Moshe, it would be also to do the eitzah. In other words, you have to judge the situation. If you are all that stands between her and the abortion, in other words, it could be that if you don't give her that information, let's say she doesn't have access for whatever reason, then everybody would agree you shouldn't do that. If you are the only way to give her the eitzah. Ad koi asaknu b'dvar lifnei iver. He says now, and this is the beauty, the genius of dealing with a complex halachic opinion and compartmentalizing it to the different isurim that you need to look at. We've now spoken about the lifnei iver element, and we brought the machlekes haposkim. Now we'll have a look at whether and this is a fascinating sidebar, is a Jew obligated to rebuke or to do we have any moral responsibility for ensuring that a goy doesn't do an aveira that they shouldn't do? Now, our responsibility to each other as brothers and sisters is hoicheach toicheach es amisecha. We have a mitzvah min haTorah to influence, to impact, to rebuke. Obviously, there are conditions as how you do it in such a way that it will be accepted, etc., etc. But we have an absolute obligation. You can't turn the other cheek, right? You can't just, somebody's going to do an aveira, it's none of my business, he can do whatever he likes in his life. Yeah? So the mitzvah hoicheach toicheach. Rashi says b'Sanhedrin, from the fact that it says it's amisecha means somebody who shares the same value system, but the hoicheach toicheach, Rashi says in Sanhedrin, doesn't apply to a Gentile. If that's the case, remember his shaila was, Dr. Levy's shaila, part of his shaila was, do I actually have a chiyuv to try and dissuade her from doing this because it's also for her? On the basis of this, Rashi in Sanhedrin says that I'd have no obligation. However, he asks, how can we possibly learn from the word of amisecha that there's no chiv techacha libnei noach? Hari HaKadosh Baruch Hu sholach es Yoina hanovi lohichiach es anshe Ninveh al masayim oroyim. We see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent Yoina hanovi, the whole book of Yoina, to tell off a society that was not Jewish to mend their ways and to do tshuva. Maybe you can answer and say, well, it's the exception that proves the rule. The fact that Hashem did this unusual thing for reasons known to him, maybe that was a hiras sha'am isiba mesuyemes. It is an isolated incident, and maybe we can't derive context and halachic license from it. Interesting, huh? Elo shebesefer chasidim kosov im Yehudi roya nachri chaytei im yochel imches yimche. The Sefer Hasidim writes, he brings from Sefer Hasidim, that if a Yehudi sees a Nochri doing an Aveira, if you can object, you should. Not a good situation for Hashem not to be in a good mood, quote unquote. Obviously he doesn't have moods, but interesting. Next paragraph, the Chasam Sofer also writes on the Pasuk Yismach Hashem b'ma'asov. The Pasuk says, we say the Pasuk every day, Yismach Hashem b'ma'asov. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is happy with his creatures. Klape shebedoyer hamabul alidei znus v'tarevis haminim nisatsim keviyochel al liboy. Because of the moral turpitude, that's a good word for you. Don't know where that popped into my head. Because of the result of the moral depravity and decline that took place at the time of the Mabul, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was, so to speak, upset. Therefore, the Sar Ha'olam, one of the Malachim, without going into it, said at the time of creation, Halavai sheyeh chavoid Hashem la'olam, yehi chavoid Hashem la'olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we are told, was happy at the Shas Masa Bereshis. And the Sar Ha'olam said, Yehi chavoid is a tefillah, Yehi chavoid Hashem la'olam. May Hashem's glory always be thus, that it should be evident that there is a Borei Olam, that He's running the world, etc. Yismach Hashem b'maisav. May it always be so that He should have nachas from His creations. Halavai she'kved Hashem la'olam she'in izhorim mitarevis k'mehad v'shoim oz yismach Hashem b'maisav. On the basis of this Chasam Sofer suggests to Rav Zilberstein that maybe there is a concept, at least, to ensure there is Aveira isn't done in the world, giving nachas ruach to the Borei Olam. And then he, in the quote, he has about Mordechai. Maybe that's why Mordechai told big son Vaseresh. Right. V'ulai ein stira midivrei Rashi b'Sanhedrin divrei Sefer Chasidim. Okay, we can kind of leave this bit out, and therefore that is basically the end of the tshuva. Well, he talks about possibly the difference between bein adam lachaveiroi. Actually, maybe I should have mentioned this. Maybe there's a difference. The Sefer Hasidim is talking about mitzvahs bein adam lamokim, but it could be mitzvahs bein adam lachaveiroi is different. He's not sure. Bottom line, what have we seen from this tshuva? Let's wrap this one up. Tomorrow we'll look at. Oh, there is no tomorrow. I mean, there is tomorrow, but you have a long weekend now. So the next time we meet will be
Monday.
Oh, we're back on Monday. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Monday. Monday we will look at two of Tshuvas from Ramesh Steinbuch. What have we learned from here? We've learned from here that a Jewish medical practitioner who is called upon to do perform an abortion procedure on a Goya, obviously should endeavour not to, if it's possible, may have a moral duty to try and dissuade her, because it's an issa for her. Not clear. Seems to be Rashi versus Sefer Hasidim. Not at all clear. He doesn't really doesn't draw any conclusions. Would he be allowed? Let's do it min hakala la koved. Would he be allowed to refer her to another abortion clinic? Possibly. And that would probably be the preferred option, especially if she's going to get such an eitzah, if that information is freely available anyway. Mm-hmm. It could be, even according to the Mishnah Melech, that would be okay. Note that if she could only get access to this information via him, then possibly even the Mishnah Melech would say not to. Sorry, even the Pnei Moshe would say not to. But to actually do it himself would effectively be a machlokes between the Mishnah Melech and the Chasam Sofer. And it would depend on the understanding of Trei Avra Denara, of the limitation on Lifnei Iver, whether it applies in a situation where the one Issa can't be done without the Lifnei Iver. That's fundamentally what it would depend on. Bear that in mind, try and remember this, and then Monday we'll see Reb Moshe Steinbuch's approach to this, and then we'll probably wrap it up in one more session. Maybe we'll look at some of the statements from the various organizations, and we'll probably move on to another sugya. Like I say, we could go on this for pretty much ever.